Let's talk about debt. For most of us, it starts with that first car. Mine cost $800 and I had $150 to put down, leaving me with what felt like a whopping amount of debt, $650. Now, then I went in deeper into debt with my college education, which I paid off over the years through student repayment programs. But during that time, I took on then even more debt when I purchased my first home. The reality is that no matter what stage of life you're in, just starting out, raising a family, building a career, or facing retirement, they all typically encompass the acquisition of debt in some form or fashion. And while the popular voice of Dave Ramsey has people screaming, "I'm debt-free," out a window, and I do wish that for everyone, I certainly do, where I get off that bandwagon is where the word debt becomes a dirty word that we're not allowed to say unless we scream that we're done with it. If you're saving for that first emergency fund or replenishing it after that emergency, those types of things need to take precedence. People often ask me, "Dave, hey, what's the minimum client size, for working with your team here at Family Financial Partners?" And while I'd love for everyone to be super wealthy and never need to access any of their money and have no debt, that's only 5 or 10% of my clients. The vast majority are everyday people who are oscillating between saving and taking on more debt. So the answer is we have no minimum. We work with people who have dreams and goals and are thriving. That's the fun part, seeing people actually achieve the things that they've been working towards. We've all heard that 50% of marriages end in divorce, and that is a leading cause of money in relationships. It's just one of those tough things. So if you're in a relationship, it would behoove you and your spouse or significant other to talk about your savings plans, your goals, and yes, your debt. It sounds simple, but trust me, this conversation is hard to have, actually. If you're used to managing things yourself, it can be hard to tell someone that, hey, I have a credit card balance, or that you spend every last dime and therefore don't have any actual emergency fund savings. It's scary to feel judged or admit things that you may not be proud of. However, if you can't have that conversation with the person who should mean, the person that you're going to spend the rest of your life with, then who can you have it with? And in many cases, when it comes to marriages, it's no surprise that folks are stressed and those marriages often end due to finances and a lack of communication. I was recently blessed to meet with a new client couple who, when asked how they talk about money, shared with me that they do have a budget in an Excel spreadsheet. And while you may be thinking this is a little over the top and they're overachievers, Dave, because maybe they are, but they didn't have everything figured out and they still have goals that they're working on. That's why they're in talking to us. And what they had learned was to communicate with each other when they had a little more cash flow and might make some purchases, or on the other hand, when one would call a spending freeze, then they'd both just tighten the budget to save up a little bit. And I could see the joy in their faces that came from not only living within their means, but when they lift that spending freeze and get whatever it was they had been saving for. In addition to talking with your spouse about spending, saving, assets, and liabilities, it's also a good idea to do a self-assessment of where you swipe your card. That's right, where you do it, not them. You don't have to share the results, but be sure to recognize any purchases that you look at and you wonder, what was I thinking? Why did I swipe that? I don't even have that anymore. You see, identifying how and where you can create consumer debt can really empower you going forward to be mindful of how you use your money. And I can also tell you this, very few people come into my office without the income to meet their goals, if time is on their side. It's much more common to talk to people whose goals aren't being met because their resources are actually being spent elsewhere. So my challenge to you is this week, take some time, have a chat with your spouse about where you are with your goals, your balances, both savings and debts, and your overall financial picture. Then look at your own statements from the last 30 days and make note of where that money is actually going. There's nothing wrong with spending money. I don't want you to hear that. Nothing wrong with spending money. Just make sure that you're spending it where you really want to.